Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Complete Devotion. In this session we shall discuss about chapter 4 History, what books and burials tell us. We shall see the contents and the summary of this chapter. So here there are 4 Vedas. What are the 4 Vedas we have? 4 of them are Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharvana Veda. If they ask what are the different Vedas, these are the 4 Vedas. The oldest Veda is a Rig Veda and it is about 3500 years old. Which is the oldest Veda? Rig Veda, it is 3500 years old. So it includes thousands of rhymes and we call it as Sukta, which is well said. It includes, what does the Rig Veda include? It includes thousands of rhymes and it is called as Sukta or it is well said. These rhymes are in face of various gods and goddesses. So these rhymes are related to the gods and goddesses. There are 3 gods and are important. One is Agni, the god of fire, the Indra, the warrior god, and Soma, a plant from which the special drink was prepared. So different gods, 3 types of gods. One is Agni, Indra and Soma. Agni is called as the god of fire. Indra, god, that is a warrior god. Soma, a plant from which a special drink was prepared. Now we understood a part of Rig Veda. What is Rig Veda? How many years old and what are the goddesses which is referred to? These rhymes were composed by sages. Who composed this? Sages, or sages were also known as rishis. So this priests taught students to recite and memorize each syllable, word and sentence bit by bit with great care. Most of the rhymes were composed, taught and learned by men. So they were taught and learned by men. So in the previous years, you know that the men were used to teach. And few were composed by women. Rig Veda is an old or Vedic Sanskrit which is different from the Sanskrit you learn in the school these days. So previously the Rig Veda or Vedic Sanskrits were different from what you are reading today. We'll go for next page. Sanskrit is a part of our family languages. It's also known as the Indo-European language. Some Indian languages such as Assamese, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri and Sindhi, Asian languages such as Persian and many European languages such as English, French, German, Greek, Italian and Spanish belong to this family. So in the family of Sanskrit, we have got all these languages. So Sanskrit is a part of the family of the languages known as Indo-European language. Now the books we use and are written and printed. The Rig Veda was recited and heard rather than read. The Rig Veda was recited and heard rather than read. It was written down several centuries after it was first composed and printed less than 200 years ago. How historians study the Rig Veda? Historians like archaeologists find out about the past, but in addition to the material remains, they examine written sources as well. So they are going to examine the written sources. They are going to archaeologists are find out about the past. In addition to the material remains, they are going to examine the written sources. So archaeologists, as we know, they will look into the different sources which are available. So how they are going to study? Some hymns in the Rig Veda are in the form of dialogues. This is part of one such hymn, a dialogue between a sage named Vishwamitra and 2 rivers, Bees and Sutlej. So here one of the sages, that is Vishwamitra, term should be known, and 2 rivers, terms Bees and Sutlej must be remembered. So they are worshipped as goddesses. Now to the next page. So here we can see a page from a manuscript of the Rig Veda. So we can see the page from a manuscript. This is a manuscript. So where it is scripted. So that becomes a manuscript. Manuscript. So manuscript indicates a page which is written. So it is a usually some as we have seen in the previous chapters. So this they are using some leaf for writing up the previous. Usually they were writing in Sanskrit or Tamil languages. This manuscript of the Rig Veda on a birch bark was found in Kashmir. It is about 150 years ago. It was used to prepare one of the earliest printed texts of the Rig Veda, as well as an English translation. It is now preserved. It is now preserved in library in Pune, in Maharashtra. So it is preserved in Maharashtra. Now coming to the Vishwamitra and the rivers, we'll study about that. Vishwamitra tells, "O rivers, come down from the mountains like two swift horses, like two shining cows that lick their calves. You move like chariots to the sea through the power of Indra." Indra, you know that, is a god of warrior. "You are full of water and wish to unite with one another." It's a discussion. It's between the Vishwamitra and the rivers. Okay. Now we'll look into the next page. Cattle, horses and chariots. There are many prayers in the Rig Veda for a cattle, children, especially for the sons and the horses. So Rig Veda also has got prayers for cattle, children and the horses. The horses are yoked to the chariots. You know that the chariots has got few horses. They were used in, where they are used? They are used in the battles which were fought to capture the cattle. So they fought to capture the cattle. Battles were also fought for the land. Means they want some land, they want some ornaments, they want some kind of, they expand their empire. For that people they were having the battles. So which was important for pasture and for growing hardy crops and that ripened quickly, such as barley. Some battles were fought for water and to capture people. So even the battles were fought to capture the people and for water. Why they need people? For agriculture they need people, and for some kind of works they need the people. Okay. So these are the reasons why they fought. If they ask what is the reason for battles, so these are the reasons. Some of the wealth of that obtained was kept by the leaders. So here, those when they went for battles, the leaders are going to keep some wealth, and some were given to the priests, and rest was distributed among the people. Some wealth was used for the performance of yagnas. This paragraph tells about the utilization of funds, utilization of amount what they have got. Okay, so how they distributed, how is the usage. They are used for yagnas or sacrifices in which offerings were made into the fire. When they do some homa or yagna, there is also using this kind of whatever amount they have got. These were meant for gods and goddesses, and offerings could include, what are the offerings they are doing? Offerings were the ghee, grain, and in some cases some animals also were used to be offered. Okay. Most men took part in these wars. There was no regular army, but there were assemblies where people met and discussed matters of war and peace. They also chose leaders who were often brave and skillful warriors. They are also preferring skillful warriors. So they are going to choose the leaders who are skillful. That's the meaning. Words to describe people. What are the people? Different ways of describing people in terms of work, what they are doing. So different people are going to have different types of work. As we know, we are having now also, if we consider, we are having somebody will teach, somebody will do the ornaments, right? and some businessman is there, policeman is there, like that. So the language they speak, based on the language what they speak, the place they belong to, depend on the place they belong to, and their family, their communities and cultural practices. Depending on all these factors, they describe certain people. Some of them are found in, these words are found in the Rig Veda. These are also defined in the Rig Veda. There are two groups. What are the two groups? They are described in terms of their work. So what are the two groups? The priests, sometimes they are called as Brahmins. So those are priests. Now they were also known as Brahmins, who performed various rituals and rajas. These rajas were not like ones you will learning about later. They did not have capital cities, places or armies, nor did they collect taxes. So this is the some explanation for rajas. What is rajas? So who perform the various Brahmins who perform various rituals and rajas. These rajas were not like ones what you are going to learn later, but they have the capital cities, places or armies, nor did they have collect the taxes. Generally, sons did not automatically succeed fathers as rajas. So you should know, sons did not automatically succeed the fathers. Two words were used to describe the people or the community as a whole. One was the word Jana. Jana means it's a group of people, which will still used in Hindi or other languages. The other was Vish. The word Vishya comes from Vish. So there are two words which is known here. One is Jana, other one is Vish. Several Vish or Jana are mentioned by the name. So we find reference to Parujana or Vish, the Bharatajana or Vish, the Yadujana or Vish, and so on. So these are the three examples they have given: Purujana, Yadujana and Bharatajana. Sometimes the people who compose the hymns describe themselves as Aryas, and they are called and call their opponents Dasas or Dasyus. These were people who did not perform sacrifices and probably spoke different languages. So what are Aryas? What are Dasas? You should know. Later the term Dasa and the feminine Desi came to mean a slave. So the Dasas means slave. So this term we are also familiar in nowadays. Dasa we will call in some languages also. Slaves were women and men were often captured in war. Slaves were women and men. So these are continued to be slaves. Those were captured in the war. They were treated as property of the owners. Once they capture, they become the property of the owners. Whatever the owners do, they have to perform. Who could make them do whatever work they wanted? It can be an agriculture, it can be any other work. While the Rig Veda was being composed in northwest of the subcontinent, there were other developments elsewhere. Let us look into some of these. What are the other developments? Silent sentinels, the story of the megaliths. So now we shall see some illustration on the next page. These stone boulders are known as the megaliths. These were carefully arranged by the people and were used to mark the burial sites. The practice of erecting the megaliths began about 3000 years ago. So the practice of erecting megaliths began about 3000 years ago, that you should know. Was prevalent throughout the Deccan, South India, in the northeast and the Kashmir. You can see here. So this shows a type of megalith. It's a type of megalith in this figure. So it was some cysts like one shown here have portholes which could be used as a entrance. So this is also used as an entrance. Some important megalithic sites we can observe in the previous map too. Well, some megaliths can be seen on the surface. Other megalithic burials are often underground. So these burials are often underground. Sometimes the archaeologists find a circle of stone bundles or the single large stone standing on the ground. Single large stone is standing on the ground. So there are only indications that there are burials beneath. Some large stones over there indicates there are some burials. So all these burials have some common features. What are the common features? So generally the dead were buried with the distinctive pots, which are called the black red wire. Black and red wire. So what is black and red wire? So the dead were buried with the distinctive pots, which are called black and red wire. Also found are the tools and weapons of iron. The weapons are made of iron, and sometimes the skeleton of horses, the horse equipment and ornaments of stone and gold. So you should know. So what are they? The tools and the weapons, they are made of iron. They are made of the skeletons of horses, and horse equipments, ornaments of stone and gold are also there. So here you can see the iron equipment found from megalithic burials. So iron equipment will be like this. So here we can see the horse equipment. So to hold the foot. Okay, so this is the horse equipment. So here we have got the axes, which is used to cut something. So it's the third one is the dagger. Finding out about the social differences. The archaeologists think that the objects found with the skeleton probably belong to the dead person. The skeleton, it is belong to the dead person, obviously. Sometimes more objects are found in one grave. You see that more objects are also found in the same grave. So if we observe what are the different objects which were found in the same grave, we have seen in the previous chapter we discussed about the pyramids, what and all they included along with the mummies which are over there. For example, they included some toys, some what all he likes, some ornaments, okay, some clothes. Even the people who serve, some one or two people were also buried along with him to serve him. They have got their own reasons for it. Here one skeleton was buried with 33 gold beads. They are buried with the copper bangles and conch shells. Other skeletons have only few pots. They were buried with few pots. Means they would have got some ornaments in that pots, or in pots whatever, some food maybe there, or sometimes they will be buried with some animals also. These finds suggest that there was some difference in status among the people who were buried. So depending on the different status, he may be son of a king, or he may be son of some merchant, he may be son of some labor, he may be son of some army person or something like that. Okay? Depending on the status, they are including some materials along with them when they bury. So some were rich, others some may be poor, some chiefs, and it depends and follows. So this paragraph tells about when they bury, what all materials they may include, and what are different types of people who are categorized here, and what some examples of materials what they buried also. It tells about the status among the different people. Now, as in the previous years also, we can observe there are status among people. Were some burial spots meant for certain families? Megaliths contain more than one skeleton. So there are more than one skeleton. So these indicate that people perhaps belongs to same family. When they belong to the same family, so these megaliths contain more than one skeleton. So they were buried in the same place through. They are not in the same time. Even if they are not in the same time also, they were doing that burying in the same place. So it tells the people perhaps belong to the same family. So bodies of those who had died later were brought into the grave through the path holes. So they were using these path holes, then their bodies were brought into the grave. Stone circles or boulders and placed on the surface probably served as signposts to find the burial site, so that people could return to the same place whenever they wanted to. A special burial at Inamgon. So we have seen the previous map. Okay, we can see in the previous chapter. So it's a site on the river God, tributary of the Bhima. River God, a tributary of the Bhima. It was occupied between 3600 and 2700 years ago. Here the adults were generally buried. So in this river God, the adults were generally buried on the ground, laid out straight, with the head towards the north. So how they were buried? They were buried the head towards the north, and this is 3600 to 2700 years ago near the river God, the tributary of Bhima. Sometimes burial were within the houses. They were buried within the houses also. So vessels that are probably contained food and water were placed with the dead. So they were keeping some items like food and water also placed along with the dead. So these are some beliefs what they had. So based on which they are giving some which is required along with the dead. One man was found buried in large 4-legged clay jar in a courtyard of 5-roomed house, one of the largest houses at the site. So one man was found by who is buried with a 4-legged clay jar in a courtyard of a 5-roomed house. So a bigger burial. So it got 5 rooms in the center of the settlement. So this house also had a granary. It had also got a granary. The body was placed in the cross-legged position. In what position? It is a cross-legged position. So what skeletal studies tell us? So this tells the skeleton what they are going to study. So it can be a small size, it can be a large size skeleton. So this tells about the age of the skeleton, what are the number of bones present in a skeleton. Okay, what posture the burial was there. It tells about the joints. It tells about pelvic area. It tells about the sex of the skeleton. Occupations at Inamgon. Archaeologists have found seeds of wheat, barley. They found the rice, pulses, millets, peas and sesame. So these are the food they were using. So they have found all this. So it means that in thousands of years ago, what are their foods? What they found with respect to food. The bones of the number of animals. So many bearing cut marks that were shown there, they have been used as food. When they cut, some markings will be there, so that will also be observed by the archaeologist. So these include, so they used to eat the cattle, the buffalo, the goat, sheep used to be their foods, or they were rearing those. They were rearing the dogs, horse, ass, pigs, and some were spotted deer, black buck, antelope, hare, and mongoose, and along with those, the birds, crocodile, turtle, crab, and fish were also seen by the archaeologists. So there is evidence that fruits such as ber, amla, jamun, dates, and variety of berries were collected. They are used as a food. And there are different purpose they were having these animals. One for farming, one as a food, and one for they were making some kind of clothing out of it. And there are different purposes we can observe by the archaeologists with the evidence which is found. So elsewhere we have got a manuscript over here. So these writings were on the animal bones. You can see here, these are the writings which are on the animal bones. This is found around 3500 years ago. And these are called oracle bones because they were used to predict the future. So the kings also got this scribes to write the questions on the bones. Would they win the battles? Would they harvest? So when the kings got some questions, they were writing on these bones. And here are some beliefs what they had, and whether they will get sons or they will get daughter. Would they harvest the good? Whether they will get rain? Whether they will not get rain? Whether they are fortunate or unfortunate when for going for some good things. And it's a fortune teller for study these cracks. So these kings lived in the palaces, in the cities. They amassed vast quantities of wealth. As you know, the king is having vast quantities of wealth. There are also different levels of kings. Okay. Some king means he is having more wealth. So they are having the bronze vessels. They did not know how to use them. So this is the end of the chapter 4. Okay. Thank you all for joining. Please subscribe to our channel, like and comment. Thank you all for joining.